With the fall release season comes our annual allotment of modern military shooters, trying to thrill us with roller coaster single-player campaigns and multiplayer suites with tons of DLC on the way. And, like any fall season, it's the usual suspects. Activision's multi-studio cyclical juggernaut series continues its annual early November onslaught this year, but EA, always desperate to challenge Call of Duty to a backstreet brawl, released the fourth numbered entry in DICE's rather great Battlefield series. With the numbered title coming so soon after their last entry in the series though, does DICE's latest and greatest create and innovate? Or is this a new title that's just focused on refining the current formula of bang bang shoot 'em up gameplay? Six years after a failed Russian separatist plot to ignite World War III, U.S. Special Forces Squad Tombstone is ordered into Azerbaijan to retrieve intelligence that confirms that a rogue Chinese admiral plans to lead a coup d'etat against the current government, which would earn them the support of Russia. Shortly thereafter, Admiral Chang is able to convince the Chinese people that the U.S. is responsible for the death of their newly elected president Jin Jae. During a rescue mission in Shanghai, an EMP device is detonated, which affects much of the region, including Tombstone's own home base located on the US's Valkyrie. Crippled, blind, and without direction from above, the men and women of the Valkyrie must do what they can to stop Chang before the conflict escalates out of control. Now, if you listened to that last bit and groaned over how generic it sounds, you're not alone. Battlefield 4's story hits on all the major points of any commonplace military techno thriller these days, and for almost all aspects of the single-player experience, it's been done far better elsewhere. Across this 4 to 5 hour campaign, every twist and turn is neither surprising nor exhilarating, with a cast of characters just as equally boring. It doesn't even feature a proper ending or a final confrontation with the bad guy in question, and with levels that feel overly long, the entire experience feels like a drag. Gameplay-wise, the campaign features little to be excited for. A squad order mechanic is implemented wherein the player presses a button and your squad mates fire upon a set amount of enemies in a given direction. The use of the order system is finicky at best, both in targeting the enemies you actually want them to attack, as well as the accuracy of the AI in question. What's more confusing is the fact that your friendly AI is atrociously stupid at times and will, more often than not, walk within feet of an enemy and either miss with every shot or will simply ignore them entirely. It's clear that DICE wants you to be the one to take out the vast majority of those who dare to point their guns in your direction, but you would figure that, since you're part of an elite team of covert ops marines, they'd be able to help you out. And they will, albeit when it suits them. What is clear, however, is that EA is once again pushing to grab the attention of the Call of Duty crowd, while ignoring many of the selling points and attributes that make the Battlefield series far different from its competition. The single-player campaign is easily the biggest victim of this drive, and it's a sad attempt at best. Rather than focus on full-spectrum warfare encompassing multiple roles and overall greater conflict, as Battlefield 3 attempted and the Battlefield series' multiplayer as a whole achieves, this story is entirely focused on one character in a single set path with no real attention given to the greater effort at all. You don't get to see the weight of the implied conflict on the region, nor the circumstances for which it matters. You go where you need to go and do as you're told. Once your role in the story is over, nothing else happens. It ends. That's it. So what is the Battlefield 4 single-player experience like then? It's a boring, unnecessary slog that doesn't warrant any attention. Next time, DICE, stick to your guns. Ignore the competition. Let's be honest with ourselves, though. You don't come to play a Battlefield game for the single player. With this newest entry only coming 2 years after Battlefield 3, one should definitely ground their expectations of this title being more of an expansion and refinement of the previous game's mechanics than a new, completely unique take. Happily, DICE took notice of Battlefield 3's multiplayer being as good as it was, and seems to be doing right by players by making it even better. I'm glad to report that apart from the overall single-player experience, the multiplayer's character class customization system is the only thing grafted from the Call of Duty series and adapted for the Battlefield formula, for which the results are graciously accepted. Each class still feels unique as far as their role in the field of play, but this time around you have far more options as to equipment, weapon, and character customization. The previous title only had a handful of customization options, and even then, it was pretty spartan as to what you can add to your firearms. Weapons now have many more options available to them, from grips to scopes, specialized sights to camouflage designs. Combat of Battlefield 4's multiplayer component is both strong and satisfying. The PC and current-gen versions of the game are far more fleshed out than their PS3 and 360 brethren, with full 64-player matches in Conquest mode compared to the last gen's much more humble 24-player limit. This, in turn, yields a much more frantic and, consequently, a match-to-match experience that feels far more involved and alive. Whereas I felt like a valued member of my team in the last gen versions, and despite my role now somewhat diminished with a near tripling of the player count, I still feel like I can be a critical squad mate. Nowhere throughout my dozens of hours of play across the various modes of the game did I feel fatigued or stressed to the point of quitting in a huff. I have enjoyed my time immensely, and will continue to do so in the months to come. Objectively, I do have to say that the map design in Battlefield 4 feels a little hit or miss depending on the mode selected. Across the 10 maps that ship with the game, with up to 8 additional maps now available through DLC depending on your platform or choice, you'll find interesting ones very befitting of most of the game types, like Siege of Shanghai, Paracel Storm, and Operation Locker, while others are definitely geared more towards the series' most popular game type, Conquest. At this current point in time, DICE is still working on spawn times and vehicle placement on such maps as Haneen Resort's Rush progression, but it's clear that they want to make the experience better. One big point that DICE and EA have been quick to talk up is their concept of levolution, in which player actions can change the way a map is played. Sadly though, other than Siege of Shanghai's famous skyscraper takedown, most of the other maps feature a really weak event going on. Most of the maps either feature a much weaker map event or no event at all. Paracel Storm, for example, gives us a pretty if somewhat ineffectual typhoon, and Flood Zone takes out most of the ground level traversal, forcing players to swim throughout the lower portions of the map. But not many others hold the same excitement or dynamic game-changing event that alters the way you play. As previously stated, some even feature one, such as Goldmud Railway, or are so mundane that they happen and you simply go back to what you were doing 10 seconds later. This large-scale gameplay shifting destruction sounds great on paper, but thus far is not really indicative of what players would expect to see or what they want to see in a level. One very welcome returning feature of the game is the Commander mode, an RTS-like gameplay element that was last seen in Battlefield 2142 in 2006. Rather than taking to the field, the commander gets a top-down view of the entire map and has the capacity to send and receive orders, as well as send support to players on the ground by way of radar-enhancing UAV drones and resupply drops. Based on the progress of your teams in certain modes such as Conquest, additional offensive powers can be granted to you, such as the ability to deploy a gunship or launch a cruise missile strike. The player has to be wary and anticipate the actions of the enemy commander though, as balance tweaks allow opposing players to block out each other's commands or warn their troops of shenanigans their opponents may be doing. It's very nice to see this feature finally return, and it's perfect for those who want to participate but don't actually want to sit down and do any shooting at the moment. Of all the tablet-friendly second screen apps and modes available to consumers at the moment, Battlefield 4's Commander mode seems to be the best of the bunch. All in all, where the single player fails, the multiplayer makes up for in strides. As a transitional title designed to bridge the gap between this last generation and this new one, Battlefield 4 definitely makes it as one of the visual standouts as to the potential of what our new systems are capable of. Whereas the last gen versions demonstrate muddy textures, questionable lighting schemes, and foliage that could look like a cardboard cutout at times, the PC and next gen versions, or should I say current gen, are visually outstanding. There are some subtle signs of unconformity between the PS4, PC, and Xbox One versions, with anti-aliasing and color presentation being the keynotes. What you're seeing right now is the Xbox One version, by the way. But the end result is a rather nice 60 frame per second game with very few frame rate drops, great looking foliage, and particle effects that will get you killed in a firefight for staring at them too long. Again, as a transitional title though, beyond visual design, it's also a primer for what systems can really support in terms of gameplay. Last gen's versions of the game limited matches to, at most, 24 players, whereas PC and current gen versions now allow for 64 players. Something rarely achieved in console space. The transition one can observe in one game between different generations is quite startling at times, and Battlefield 4 does an outstanding job of telling us exactly what we can expect going forward. Barring the decidedly phoned-in acting for the single player, Battlefield 4's sound design is just as fantastic as the visual presentation. Localized sound is great, and the audioscaping for the variety of environments you'll find is quite splendid. While it can be a bit hard from a distance to get a sense for the weapons that are being fired, no two weapons seem to depict a uniform sound effect set when you're pulling the trigger. Hearing a jet go whizzing past you overhead as the tank that's been chasing you explodes into a fiery shrapnel is intense and really lends to sell the fact that this game isn't about just localized deathmatches. You're part of a much larger overall effort that won't be over in 10 minutes. It's not a question of fights between squads, it's a battle between whole armies, and this is why Battlefield is such a good series in my opinion. With that being said, however, Battlefield 4 has seen one of the most turbulent launches in recent memory. Fraught with bugs, server issues, and crashes across all platforms, it's quite clear that Battlefield 4 wasn't meant to be released on October 29th. Given another 2 to 3 months of work, DICE clearly could have put together a stellar multiplayer suite, but when a game crashes on you every couple hours, outright refuses to connect you to a match, and the server browser is completely broken, you should know you have a problem that needs to be addressed immediately. That being said, over a month after release, DICE is still combating problems on all fronts. New waves of patches seem to be coming weekly, but this doesn't help the millions of people who have bought the game already expecting greatness, only to constantly receive timeout error messages. DICE will most certainly fix these problems over the next few weeks, now that all versions of the game are now available at retail, but that hasn't helped the stigma Battlefield 4 has endured, and will continue to plague it for some time to come. As much as I love Battlefield 4, it certainly isn't a game that was ready to be released. The single player component lacks any sort of excitement or emotional punch to make it anything more than a drag to play through, thanks to a poorly written story and even worse characters. Its multiplayer makes up for much of that problem, and when it wants to work, it's a tremendously satisfying experience. However, games should work when we want to play, not the other way around, and thanks to a bug-laden launch, it's been a disappointment. Battlefield 4 is not the impressive leap forward that it was between the second and third numbered titles. Instead, this is Battlefield 3.5, a refinement of the basics that we got in 2011 with some impressive scripted destruction and gameplay balancing that changes the way you play. Its campaign is a complete waste of your time, but when it works, the multiplayer is some of the best on the market.